Here's another systems of equations practice problem. We're told that a grocer sells peanuts, pecans, and cashews, and we're given the price per pound. We're told he wants to make 50 pounds of a mixture and plans to sell it for $5.50 per pound, and that the mixture will contain as many peanuts as pecans and cashews combined. Let's begin by deciding what letters to use. We can see in the first line there are three types of nuts we're going to sell: peanuts, pecans, and cashews. We can let peanuts be letter X, pecans be letter Y, and cashews be letter Z. We're going to need to write at least two equations. The first equation will be an equation that determines how many pounds of each we'll use, and then the second equation will determine how much it will cost. We'll be writing an equation for pounds and cost. Let's look at the information about the pounds. This grocer wants to make 50 pounds of this mixture, and this mixture will contain peanuts, pecans, and cashews, but we don't know how many of each. But if we add them all together, they should make 50. With this in mind, we can say that X plus Y plus Z must equal 50 pounds. Again, we don't know how much of each we have, but we know once we add them all together, we should get that total mixture of 50 pounds. Now let's write an equation for the cost. We know peanuts will be $4 per pound, and since peanuts are X, we know that part of our cost will be 4 times X. That's $4 per pound, times however many pounds of peanuts we have. We'll also be selling pecans that are $6 per pound. We'll now write 6Y, $6 per pound, times the number of pounds of pecans, plus the cashews. For that, we'll write 8Z. This will equal the total cost. The grocer says that they're going to sell this for $5.50 per pound. So we'll write 5.5 after the equal sign based on that. But we must multiply that times the number of pounds. But from the previous equation, we know there are going to be 50 pounds. Therefore, our total cost will be $5.50 times 50. We can multiply that together now and get 275. Therefore, our equation will be 4x plus 6y plus 8z equals 275. Now we're going to write a third equation for the third sentence in the paragraph. This sentence says that the mixture will contain as many peanuts as pecans and cashews combined. Let's read the sentence left to right. The first subject in the sentence is peanuts, which we know will be X. The sentence then says it has as many peanuts as pecans and cashews combined. We'll let the as stand for an equal sign. We also know the pecans will be Y, and the cashews will be Z. And then the word combined means to add them together. Therefore, we'll add Y plus Z on the right, and this must equal X. This means our completed equation is X equals Y plus Z. Note that this sentence is not telling you to combine the peanuts with the pecans and cashews. We're only going to combine the pecans and cashews together. This word as is going to act as a barrier between the left side and the right side. We're going to put equals where the as is. With all three equations in mind, let's move them over to the next page and then try to solve this system. Now that we've assembled all three equations, we're going to have to make a decision as to whether we're going to use substitution or elimination method. My recommendation is to use substitution here, because if we look at line 3 already has one of the letters by itself. We have X equals Y plus Z. Therefore, everywhere we see X in the system, we can replace it with Y plus Z. This means in line 1 and 2, the X in this position I'm underlining, and the X in the other position I'm underlining from line 2, we'll put Y plus Z in its place. Therefore, we'll have a new line 1 where we replace that X with Y plus Z. Therefore, we now have y plus z, followed by the other y plus z that comes next in that equation, equals 50. We'll also have a new line 2. In that line 2, we now have 4 times y plus z. I'm writing that in red. That's the x we are substituting in for and replacing with y plus z. Then we'll say plus 6y plus 8z equals 275. Now let's try simplifying these equations as much as we can. The new line 1 has a y plus z plus another y plus another z. We can combine these y's and get 2y. We can also combine the z's and get 2z. This will equal 50. Then, if we divide everything by 2 to simplify just a little bit more, we'll end up with y plus z equals 25. This simplified form will be our new line 1. We'll do the same thing with line 2 and try to simplify as much as we can. We'll begin by taking the 4 on the outside of the parentheses and multiplying times y plus z, remembering that since we replaced x with the binomial y plus z, that binomial must be in parentheses. If we multiply, we get 4y plus 4z plus 6y plus 8z equals 275. Now we'll combine our y's together. 4y plus 6y will give us 10y. We combine the z's together also, and we'll get 4z plus 8z equals 12z. This will equal 275. This will be our new line 2. With our new line 1 and 2, simplified as much as possible, we will now try to solve the system of equations with y and z. Now we're going to deal with line 1 and 2 and try to solve for y and z using just those two equations. Again, let's stick with the substitution method and try to get one of the letters in line 1 by itself. I recommend we use line 1 because the letters y and z don't have any coefficients in front of them. We'll have to pick one to solve for. It doesn't really matter which one we pick, but I would recommend we go ahead and go for y. So if I start with y plus z equals 25, and then I subtract z from both sides, this will get y by itself. If I subtract z from both sides, I will get y equals 25 minus z. Then I can replace the y in line 2 with the y I just found. We can replace that y that I've boxed in line 2 with this binomial 25 minus z. Therefore, I can rewrite line 2. Line 2 will now have 10 times the new binomial, 25 minus z, followed by plus 12z equals 275. We'll simplify this 10 times the parentheses. 10 times 25 gives us 250. 10 times negative z gives minus 10z, plus 12z equals 275. We can combine the like terms because negative 10z plus 12z will give us positive 2z. We'll still set this equal to 275. Then, if we subtract 250 from both sides, this will cancel out the 250 on the left and get us one step closer to getting z by itself. We now have 2z equals 275 minus 250 is 25. For our final step, if we divide by 2, 25 divided by 2 gives us 12.5. This means we will have 12.5 pounds of cashews in our mixture, keeping in mind that cashews was z. Now that we have z, let's try to get y. We wrote at the top of this page that y was equal to 25 minus z. Now we know z is 12.5, so we can place that 12.5 where z is located. So we now have y equals 25 minus 12.5, which gives us 12.5 pounds of pecans, keeping in mind the pecans were letter y. This takes care of y and z. Now we just need x, But, thankfully, we already found previously that x is equal to y plus z. We'll write down that x is equal to y plus z, and we replace y with our pounds of pecans, that's 12.5, and replace z with our pounds of cashews, that's also 12.5. Add them together, and we'll get 25 pounds of peanuts. Now we have the total number of pounds of all three nuts, and we've solved the system.